Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another live session of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin here with my co-host James Haskell, and as always, DK in the background keeping us straight. What's going on, Nana? What's going on, Billy? Appreciate you guys coming out. Talk some Ravens football because there is definitely some news about our team. But before we get into that, as always, we like to start talking a little bit of general NFL talk here, and I want to start in a place where they're seeing maybe arguably definitely one of the greats, but arguably the greatest, at least statistically, quarterback of all time, and Drew Brees leaving the New Orleans Saints to go off to greener pastures and retire and enjoy his life after football. Well, left a bit of a quarterback controversy behind him. A couple guys that are both competing to be the number one guy, and Jameis Winston, the former Tampa Bay Buck number one overall pick, and Taysom Hill, Jimmy's favorite overall quarterback, who he loves, the dual threat weapon that Taysom is, who fills a lot of positions and checks a lot of boxes for the New Orleans Saints. But interesting to see who ends up being the ultimate starter at the quarterback position there. And this one's going to be tough because I think Jameis isn't going to be filling in anywhere else. That's for certain. I mean, if he's playing the quarterback spot, and obviously had a bunch of ups and downs when he was in Tampa. I mean, he threw for 5,000, Jimbo. He led the league in passing yards just not long ago in 2019. The problem is he threw 30 interceptions, Jimbo, in one season. I mean, first of all, that's obviously bad, but you gotta be good to be able to get to 30 interceptions. I mean, you got to be doing something right enough to stay in the game and stay the starter long enough to get to 30 interceptions. So, mind you, he did have 33 touchdowns with those 30 interceptions. But do you think there's a chance he could end up being the starter, even though Taysom Hill's been there for a few years, got a contract extension? Who ends up starting in New Orleans?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one because, I mean, as a pure quarterback, you know what? I hate this whole debate as a pure quarterback anymore because people disqualify Lamar Jackson because of this. And running is officially in my category part of what a quarterback does. Mm-hmm. And in fact, wasn't it years when the quarterback back in the day, the forward pass wasn't even a thing?
It's a long way back, but yes.
But the point is that it's a long way back. That's like, cars were invented. There were horse and buggy back then too. They had like leather helmets. But no, for sure. Like as a thrower of the football, there you go. As a thrower of the football, Jameson is better, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I could Sorry, Jameis, not my bad. Sorry, James
Hensley.
Sorry.
Oh, gotcha.
But Jameis is better. But the thing is that with a guy like Sean Payton, I could see him going full on Lamar Jackson type. Look, Taysom is not Lamar Jackson, and I went off Lamar in Lamar's 2019 year when some idiot reporter in Provo. I lived there for 4 years, and you're an idiot because you said that Lamar Jackson is a poor man's Taysom Hill. You're an idiot, right? That's just stupidity. But they could run a similar run-heavy type 17 to 19 passes a game where Taysom is a very, very dynamic runner of the football, period, at the end of the day. Obviously, it looks way different than Lamar. It's more like Tebow-esque, but he is much faster than Tim Tebow. So it's hard for me to make this decision, and they've also committed to both of them financially. Right? Like Taysom isn't on a quote unquote, like really team friendly deal anymore. And I think that when they re-upped Jameis this year, I think they're dedicating like $12 million to him or something of that nature. Either it's in 1 year or 2 years.
DK. Yeah.
Yeah. And so let's see here. I think DK is going to have something for us. And you can throw it in the banner or if you want to put an image up on the screen, whatever's easier for you, no problem. But they've committed to both of them financially. And so I think it's going to be a fair and open competition. Let's see here. This is Taysom Hill.
Yeah, this is Taysom. Let's see.
2021. Oh, it's there and gone.
It was fleeting.
Here we go. All right. So, this is Jameis. So
Okay, so we got James.
2022. Let's take this. There we go. Okay, awesome.
So still very.
So his cap number is $3 million. So less than Jameis. Or sorry, less than Taysom.
Wow,
I believe
is very reasonable deal. Wow.
I think his cap number will be right. And so
that's crazy.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is that I honestly and this is the last thing. I feel like I'm kind of filibustering here. It's hard to say it's just going to be an open competition because the way the offense will look is going to have to be so different. I think you're going to have to go down one road or another. So you're going to have to make your decision early, don't you think?
Well, if you want to make one guy the guaranteed starter, then yeah, absolutely. But if you want to, run a multi-dimensional offense and have both guys playing that role, similar to what we see sometimes in college, we've seen that. I think, like you mentioned Tim Tebow earlier, there was a year where I think it was at Chris Leak. There was a year where he was sharing snaps at the quarterback spot. We've seen it at a bunch of colleges that don't have they always say if you have two quarterbacks, that means you don't have one. Because you shouldn't really have that kind of a decision. So they could decide to run a multi-dimensional offense where Taysom gets 10 to 15 snaps at quarterback and Jameis gets the rest, or I don't know how they would do it. But you're right. If they wanted to name one guy the permanent starter, they'd have to start that at training camp and build their offense around that guy.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think it will be Taysom. Or sorry, excuse me. I think it will be Winston that gets the job. Mm-hmm. While I hate that I have to defend that Taysom Hill is a freakish athlete and has, obviously he's made a career for himself, but has an opportunity to push him for the job. But the last thing I want to talk about here, Glenn, before we get into Ravens talk. Okay. Should we just hop right into it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. We're here to talk Ravens, so we'll get right into it. So do y'all think we get Justin Houston? So let me add to that, Glenn, and ask you this: why is it taking so long? And do you think that where does it, as far as the length of time it's taken to get this deal done or not done, how does it impact your answer to this question from Rafari Cooper?
I'm starting to think that the delay in him signing is simply he wants to miss some of these OTAs and he probably feels that if he's inked to a contract that he feels obligated, even though some of these now. Most recent was mandatory, I believe. But yeah, some of the voluntary stuff, he may feel like he's obligated if he's inked to a contract to show up, even though they are voluntary. So I'm thinking that that's the reason we see the delay. It could obviously be that he's holding out for more money and thinks that if he gives it a little bit more time, maybe there's some injuries throughout the league that, to his position group that raises his value or the need of a team who was decide to step up to the request he's making. I'm not really sure. Or maybe he's still unsure if he wants to go back to Indy, if he wants to move on and go somewhere else. It could be that, or he could just want to stay on vacation a little longer with his family, enjoy some time with his family. This guy's been in the league a long time, has missed, I'm sure, a lot of important life events. And so maybe he just wants to spend more time with his family. But ultimately, I think the Ravens do sign Justin Houston. I think that group is too thin. And it's been too quiet. I think if they were going to bring in another guy at that position, they'd have done it already. And so I'm hopeful. Maybe a part of it's just hope, but I do ultimately think they bring Justin Houston in. It makes so much sense for both sides. And I find it hard to believe the Ravens are going to go in this season with that group at outside linebacker when you consider they're an injury away from not only not having a guy that you feel confident can get to the passer, but they're an injury away from having very little depth at the spot and 2 injuries away from being absolutely desperate. So, yes, I do think they end up getting Justin Houston. I'm hopeful it's Justin Houston, but I think I'm confident that they're at least going to add someone to this group.
Yeah, and Bill Seals brings up a good point. Any thought to Justin Houston just retiring? He could be considering it, right? I mean, he could just be saying, trying to make a decision. That could be the big one. But I do tend to lean towards more towards your train of thought in that I think it could be a handshake deal. And he's kind of, you see some NBA vets do this too, right? Like they wait till training camp's over. And I think that Ray Allen did this a couple of years. And, some other guys will just kind of sit and wait because they know that how to get in basketball shape. They can do it on their own. And they know their role and things like that. And so, yeah, I could see that being the case. And I'm starting to think that as well. But I don't know. I just don't know if we get it done.
What's the biggest competition?
Yeah, I mean, I get
Indy?
it's got to be because I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be Indianapolis. Certainly, it's got to be the Colts because it would be the easiest for him to go back there, right? The most convenient. He knows the team. They're a complete team. Theoretically speaking, we don't really know what they're going to get quarterback, but there's definitely an opportunity for them to be really good. I'm sure he wants to win at this stage in his career, not rebuild. So yeah, I agree with you as well. I'm hopeful that we get him, and I also agree with you in the fact that we don't want to be in a desperate situation.
Right, because then I mean we've seen it before where they think they're good at a spot, a rash of injuries hits one position group, and they're searching practice squads for some type of quality depth. So don't want to be in that position, especially now. I mean, we've heard Ozzie say, "What's the most important positions in football?" I mean, it's the passer, and then those who influence the passer, whether it be a pass rush or a cornerback. I mean, those are it's quarterback and those who bother the quarterback. That's the two most important things in football, and so that's certainly one of them. And as far as his retiring, I'd be shocked. I mean, he played. Let's see, he's 32 years old, and played in all 16 games both of the last 2 years. His last 3 years, he had 8 sacks, then 11 sacks, then 9. So still very productive, still very healthy and durable. So I'd be very shocked to see. I think he's just looking to skip out on some voluntary practices.
Yeah. So. The other thing I wanted to get into here as well is, and I don't know what your thoughts are here. I'm throwing this on you impromptu here, Glenn, but I want to talk about. I want to allow our commenters to influence heavily this show, and we try and do that the best we can every single show. But we want to turn this into, Bleacher Report has like the ask me anything type situation. Ask anything, and we'll try and get to everything we can. Obviously, if you want a guaranteed answer, throw up a super chat. We appreciate it. If not, obviously, we're going to try and get to everything we can. But ask as many questions you like. One of the things I liked that someone asked was way too early Rookie of the Year predictions. And I think an easy one would be Rashad Bateman, right? But the way that I'll ask you this question is, are there any other ones that could be surprises other than Rashad?
Are we talking about Ravens rookie or?
Yeah, Ravens Rookie of the Year. Yeah.
I mean, I think Jason Oweh. I'm sorry, Odafe Oweh would be a big one for me. I mean, if he turns into the player and reaches the potential that his athleticism would allow, then I think there's no doubt he would be a huge. He would have a huge opportunity to win that award. I think that it's a long shot for, I'm blanking on the second receiver we took.
Tylenol Wallace.
Yeah, Tylenol Wallace, I think is a bit of a long shot just because there's some guys ahead of him, some young guys ahead of him that he would have to leapfrog in order to make a run at it. But if Ben Cleveland starts and finishes the year as the left guard, I think he would certainly put his name in the hat of Rookie of the Year. Now, it's hard for an offensive lineman to get enough statistics to show this is why he earned it. But hopefully, I think members of the media, who votes on that? I think it's the members of the local media.
Correct.
So they may be savvy enough and understand enough to reward him, even though he doesn't put a bunch of stats up. And it's kind of hard to quantify the impact of a lineman. But I think if he plays well, there's certainly a chance that he could make it. But who do you have anybody else I didn't mention?
No, I think actually Odafe could be a surprise, right? And if he jumps out of the gate early and really builds, if he comes out earlier, because I think he'll finish the season strong, but if he comes out early strong and then improves upon that, he has a chance. I could see old Tylenol Wallace as well. But yeah, Ben would be tough. It's crazy because I think that Ben Cleveland's chances of making this is going to sound goofy, but I think the chances of him like getting Pro Bowl considerations might be higher than him winning Rookie of the Year or something like that. Now anyway, I don't know what your thoughts are there, but I could see him being a guy that, because his floor is so high, he was a 6-year, college attendee, played every single snap that he possibly could in college. He's coming in relatively mature as a football player. So I don't think, other than the switch of position and the increase in like, they're not big things, the switch of position and the increased competition. No biggie, Ben, no worries. But really, I don't think it's as big of a hurdle, right? That as it is for Odafe. or some of these other guys, as it will be for him. So, yeah, I could see him certainly making a case as well for Rookie of the Year.
And Casper 215 says Dalen Hayes, and I think that's an interesting prediction because Dalen Hayes is making some noise in camp. I mean, showing a lot of polish to his game, showing a lot of versatility to his game, and some are predicting that he's got bigger things ahead of him than most would have expected when he was drafted. So another guy that I think would be off the radar early in the season that could throw himself into that if he gets to the passer, if he can influence the passer on a team that seemingly doesn't have a ton of guys that can do so from the edge spot, he could certainly put his name in the hat there to win that award. So I think, and by the way, I think that question, I think it was from Lisa Ann. I think she said, Lisa Frankel said she likes to be referred to as Lisa Ann last show. So yeah, shout out to Lisa Ann. But yeah, I think that he's certainly an opportunity there. Let's see if there's any other.
Well, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. The other thing I was gonna ask was some folks have asked questions about Todd Gurley. We'll talk about that here shortly, but we did just put a video out on it. So make sure to check it out. And really quickly, while we're going through it, Glenn, I've shout these guys out. I've given a shout out to these guys before. I just want to do one more time because I think it's a really, really awesome cause. Move for Life is doing a really awesome competition. So just want to give them a shout out. It's a repository fund. So it's a nonprofit that helps low income people in Maryland. Which obviously we try and support Maryland local businesses, receive high quality fitness and health and wellness services that Medicaid and Medicare don't cover. It's a state, and state assistance programs and things like that. There are local community-based organizations, or an organization, excuse me. And, so really what they do is they're working to help people improve their quality of life through movement and helping them get in gyms and things like that aren't readily available to them. And they're doing a really cool competition, which I said here on the show that next year I will be teaming up with who knows yet, but I will be constructing a team to win this competition. I don't think we're winning it. But the Super Soldier Series is a CrossFit competition. You can check it out on their website. It's going to be July 10th. So a month from today, you got 30 days. Go sign up, but it is a tax-deductible donation. So, go check it out. Provide a donation, Move for Life. Everything's right there on the site. It's a really, really awesome cause. Find them on Facebook, Instagram, Super Soldier Series. And, a lot of their income, not only goes to that, but it also supports our heroes and troops and things like that. So, go check it out. But the other thing I wanted to bring up here was a question from a guy we know well, Glenn. Old DK's got a question.
Okay.
And we want him to be part of the show too, DK. We can't just leave it up to the folks that are in the comments. We got to let you get a word in here too. He said, "Are there any position changes of current Ravens that could potentially have an impact?"
Like, meaning, I mean, are you talking about like Villanueva? I'm trying to think who else is changing positions. It's
Bozeman.
Oh, well, that's a big one. Yeah, how did I forget about that one? I mean, that's a massive one. So yeah, I think Bozeman would be the one that jumps out now that you.
And do you think that Jimmy gets more time at safety?
I think that would only be if it was a need situation, like if there was a rash of injuries. I think they want to keep him as that ultimate versatile cornerback. I think there's going to be opportunities where he can do some safety things. But yeah, as far as him, I mean, I know that was the big thing last year. I don't see him moving permanently to safety. I think he's got too much left, and there's too much value to have a corners. I mean, as valuable as a good safety is, they just don't have the value, especially if you just look at their contracts. It shows that there's way more value to being a good corner than being a good safety. So I think he'll continue to be the cornerback that we need, and only move to safety if need be.
Now, what about Ben Mason playing some tight end?
I think that's awesome. And it's a guy that loves playing in the trenches, loves contact, is a guy that really, he says he wants to be the baddest man on the field. So I would love to see that mentality brought to the tight end room and see him knock some people over. I mean, I'd like to see him double teaming down on some DNs and moving to the next level and seeing him take on some linebackers. I think that would be awesome. But certainly the move from left guard to center by Bradley Bozeman is obvious, number one move that everyone wants to see. Can this guy hold up? Can he, first of all, snap the ball properly to Lamar Jackson? Because we don't want to see any balls going over his head. And I think Billy Seals brings up a nice question here. He says, will Bench Mason edge out Ricard? If so, what kind of role do you see for him outside of blocking? Well, first of all, that would be very surprising, but I think Bench Mason was brought in for that reason. I mean, I don't think you carry two guys.
A lot of teams don't carry any.
Right. I mean, two guys at a position like fullback would be absolutely surprising. Now, I think right now Ricard's job is safe this season. At least his spot on the roster, I should say, is safe this season because he's shown that he's valuable. But, man, going forward next year, they could look at Bench Mason as the much cheaper option. And as far as a role outside of being a blocker, this guy was a short yardage banger back in college and scored, I think, 7 or 9 touchdowns one year as a short yardage back. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously he has the ability to punch it in if you're, 3rd and short, 4th and short, or, right up on the goal line there. If you have Ricard as the lead blocker and Bench Mason as the primary ball carrier in a short yardage situation, that's a lot of weight coming your way. And then you talk about Nick Boyle being out there as a blocker, Tomlinson being out there as a blocker, along with the already huge and gigantic offensive line the Baltimore's going to be bringing to town. And then, they love to throw in that extra lineman as help to block. So, yeah, absolutely, Billy. I think that guy could eventually carve out a nice role for himself. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I'll say before we move on to the next question and keep the questions rolling in here, I'm really liking this. I'm sure Glenn and DK as well. To get back to that Bench Mason question, it's going to be interesting to see how their roles are defined because I think that if that does happen, he has to prove a couple things. I think that Ricard is in rare air athletically, size-wise, right? Mm-hmm. Him to be able to move and have that strength and to block downfield at that size. Ben Mason is not as big as Patrick Ricard, who was, if I'm not mistaken, a D tackle, right? So certainly he is larger. So Ben Mason's got to prove that he can do that at the same level, because if not, it doesn't make sense to lose that, like, number one, right? But I also think there could be a separation in what they end up doing, where that part where it's like H-back, goal line stuff, I could see Ben Mason being there. But also, we talked about him going over to tight end, him doing more of that, and maybe Ricard doing a little less of that, because he could be more of a threat as a route runner, and stretching the field even vertically, like in routes and things like that. So I think that we end up carrying them both and find a way to separate their roles enough to where there's not too much redundancy. You see what I'm saying? That's what I'm hoping for, right? Because then it's how you get maximized value. But I don't know if he just outright replaces him, because Ricard is rare, man.
He is rare. Yeah.
But you're right. He's not cheap.
Exactly. That's the big question, because we got contracts coming up that I think might make Ricard a little bit more expendable. Yeah, exactly. So, and DJ says, have a feeling Madubuike is going to outplay Brandon this year. He looks so hungry and in shape. Plus, he did well with no offseason. Imagine now. I mean, I agree with you. I think Justin is poised to have a monster season. He looks to be in incredible shape thus far in OTAs. And, we love Brandon Williams, but he's limited in what he brings to the table. Now, he's still valuable in what he brings. The fact that he can gobble up double teams and still hold his ground. We see the impact when he's off the field. The run defense slips. There's just no doubt about it. When he's forced out of the game, teams take advantage of that. They tend to run straight at where he used to be. And we just haven't found a guy that can go in and match his production and his value. It's just rare to have that kind of athleticism and that kind of strength that he brings is really incredible. However, he brings you almost nothing in the pass game, almost nothing. And so the hope is that Madubuike, while he's expected to bring you more in the pass game, that he can also hold his own in the run game. And then if he can do that, I mean, I think absolutely Brandon Williams could look to have some of his snaps, eaten up a little bit this year. But I still think that they're not necessarily the same skill set. So I'm not sure if Madubuike is really eating into his snaps, or if they just bring different things to the table, and maybe Justin Ellis is more of a direct replacement for Brandon Williams. I don't know. How do you see the competition with Madubuike and Brandon?
I'll answer this question. DJ, I'll answer it saying this. Justin Metabike will never 1-for-1 replace Brandon Williams.
Right.
Only because if you look at the Ravens from their inception, who was the big guy we had back? Sam Adams.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Saragusa.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to probably the best to do it for the Ravens. You talk about Haloti Ngata, and then Brandon Williams. We're always going to have that guy in the middle that's an anchor in the run game. John, until the lineage of our GMs is no longer the tree of Ozzie Newsome, right? I just think that, like, philosophically, that's just been pushed into them, and I'm okay with it. Like, I don't disagree with it. But like you said, because to me, it's not a 1-for-1 replacement. Right. I mean, they're so different in the value that they bring. I'm hoping that as many times as possible, we can get them both on the field at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, if you have Calais, Brandon, and obviously we'll have Wolf in there a lot, but if you have Metabike, Calais, and Brandon in there, that's a formidable, those are some big boys, a lot of different skill sets there, a lot of different body types there, a lot of different problems for the offensive line. So certainly formidable there, but I don't think that he will ever just outright replace Brandon, because I don't think he'll ever be able to do what Brandon can do. While you can say the same thing about Brandon can't do what he can do. He'll never be able to. He's not the body type. You know what I mean? Brandon's what, 6'1", almost 340, 345 pounds. Like he's just he's a different player, different type of skill set. And so, yeah, I don't think that it will ever be a 1-for-1 replacement, but I hope that they can find ways to get Metabike on the field more, certainly.
Yeah, because I think they could even complement one another. So
yeah,
let's see them. I wouldn't mind seeing them both next to each other. So
exactly.
Let's see what happens. As far, I think I saw in the comments someone calling for a possible Richard Sherman. He doesn't fit with the Ravens.
Yeah, he's a zone.
He's a cover 3 corner. This is a man team, so he wouldn't fit here. Still a good player, but in that specific type of role and defense. So I don't think he would fit here.
Yeah, the contract would be no value there, like you said, because if you're going to ask him, I mean, that's asking that's asking I don't know, a proper comparison here, but yeah, you're asking a guy who's great at something to do what he's worst at.
Yes.
It just makes no sense.
He would get exposed.
Bad.
And he's a great player in that role. And, he was still, I think, rated like the 3rd corner in the league last year, but that's because he was asked to do what he does well all year. Right. And that's play that cover 3 zone. So yeah, he doesn't fit, but still good player, just not here in Baltimore.
Not at all.
Now, as far as I do see another, Adam78 says, will Bowser step up as a pass rusher or just be the cover linebacker? I mean, do you have any hope that because he's athletic, the guy can move. He's obviously showed a lot of talent and value in other areas, still hasn't put it together as a pass rusher. Any hope that, although he's now a veteran, been in the league long enough to be considered a veteran, he signed his 2nd contract. Do you have any hope of him turning into a more polished and accomplished pass rusher?
I have hope that it can happen. I think he has the skills. And the nice thing about Tyus is that I feel like when he gets in the backfield, you're talking about the athleticism, he's a good finisher. I don't feel like he misses very often. He's a good open field tackler. And he can finish when he's, I still remember that sack he had on Baker last year, that some guys would have whiffed on, right? Like Baker's doing his little Russell Wilson impersonation and trying to shimmy around him. But Tyus is laterally much more capable than him. And that's a skill that he has. So I hope so. I was listening to him talk, and I feel like he's really stepping into a leadership role. And maybe this allows him to blossom a little more and to be confident in that, like Wink says, like theoretically it's okay to understand it and say, okay, I can make a mistake, but I have to at 100 miles an hour. But now as a vet, he doesn't have to be as uptight about it, right? He can actually practice the preaching of that principle and say, you know what, I'm just going to go at it, play loose and do my thing. And it could cause an uptick in his production in the backfield. So I'm hopeful. I would say I would give it a more than 50% chance that there's a decent uptick in his sack production.
What would you put the ceiling of his sacks at?
Ceiling?
Yeah, the ceiling.
Like 7.
So the floor is what? 4? 3?
What was it last year? He had 3 sacks last year or 2?
I'm not even
sure. So
I
think his floor is going to be 4. And that would, yeah.
So
I
somewhere
say,
between 4 to 7.
you know what? I'm going to go higher than that. 4 to 8.
4 to 8.
4 to 8. Let's go,
Man.
Tyus.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the question is, how often is he going to be used in that role? And I think as a guy who's one of the higher paid guys on the defense, you're going to be probably expected to do a lot more, than you were in years past. And he's talked about that leadership change and how he wants to become more of a vocal leader. I'm not sure, I don't know how much that's just if you're born with it or if that's something maybe he's still, because he's been here for a few years now. And I mean, I think it's something that's either your personality or not. But, that remains to be seen. And really, it's all about production more so than, having another vocal guy. Because I think we got quite a few vocal guys, especially in that front there. When you talk about what Calais Campbell brings, former man of the year. So I think we're okay there. So, Tyus just 2 sacks.
So if he doubled it and got 4, hey. Hey. I mean, but I think.
What?
Hey. That's a double in production, baby. That's all I'm saying. Mathematically, that sounds good, right? Like, I just doubled my sack production.
Yeah.
Well, you had to.
Yeah, that's I guess it's still doubling. So that's saying something. Let's see. Lisa Ann says, will Wink Martindale improve the formula from last year? I'm not improved the formula. I'm not sure. I mean, they had a pretty good defense last year. I'm not really sure which formula you're referring to, but
I think he might improve his deception and broaden his, like we saw it, Glenn, like in that Chiefs game where Wink kept doing the same thing and Patrick Mahomes kept torching us.
Yep.
Like, it was like, all right, Wink, let's shake it up a little bit. Like, let's do something different. But like you said, it's hard to improve the formula when, a lot of statistical categories, Wink is, and I think he's the best DC in the league. But I do think he'll work on his deception and maybe broaden his playbook a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fair that, I know that we love the fact that both offense and defensively, we kind of have this formula, we have this style, and we stick to our style. I mean,
yeah.
And like you said, nothing feels better than when a team knows you're doing something and they can't stop what you're doing, especially when the run game is really hitting on all cylinders. So I think the same goes for defense, but there is those moments where you run into and they've got your number. They figured it out. And it would be nice if he had that other pitch to go to, like we always say with pitchers, have something up your sleeve that you can call in those moments, like we saw against the Chiefs, where it seemed like any man blitz, Pat was able to recognize the mismatch, get it out to a playmaker. And then, if we didn't make the initial tackle, it was yak yards up and down the field. So definitely would like to see if has that change up in his back pocket.
It's so funny to me though, because what did people used to say about Dean, right? Like my uncle, I respect him as a football mind. And he used to get so frustrated at Dean Pease because he would say, I understand the bend but don't break thing, but I'm tired at the end of the game, us in this defensive mode where we're letting them get down to the 20, but we don't want to get them in the end zone. And like, we're not playing aggressive and we're dropping back all these guys and this, that, and the other. I want us to be going after it, pedal to the metal, pin your ears back and get after the quarterback. And now we have the DC that blitzes the most in the NFL. And now you hear the opposite side of it, right? And people are like, hey, why don't we take a little bit of Dean and, calm it down a little bit. So it's interesting how, there's always going to be there's always two sides to every coin, right?
Right. Yep. You can't please everyone and you can't be spectacular every area of defense. Yeah, definitely two opposite views on how to play defense between Wink and Dean, who he doesn't care how many yards you get between the 20s. But, when it comes to that red zone, he wants to tighten things up. Whereas Wink, he don't want you getting a yard. I mean, doesn't want you getting an inch.
He's like Coach Yost and Remember the Titans.
That's right. They don't get another yard. That's right. Yes. I mean, he likes a lot. He don't care if you're at your own 10. He's lining up tight man coverage and coming after you. So yeah, I
really quickly for real though. Doesn't that scene give you goosebumps though?
Oh my God, dude.
We are gonna blitz all night. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because my wife and a lot of other friends, they're big music fans. They get goosebumps from hearing great music. I'm like you. I get goosebumps from hearing a great coach speak, a great play, like a call by an announcer on a spectacular play. Like that's the kind of stuff that gives me the goosebumps is sports moments. And yeah, you're exactly right with one of them. I mean, my goodness, gets you fired, ready to run through a wall.
Yes.
But yeah, so I definitely different styles of defense, but both got it done at a pretty good level, at least while they were here in Baltimore. Okay, so DJ says, I pray Keith calls our passing game. No diss on Greg. I just think it's unfair to keep asking Greg to be a master at his weakness. Well,
can I go at this one first?
Yep, go ahead, Jimbo.
All right. So I just want to say this, DJ. Keep sending in your questions because I'm loving them. This is the only thing I'll say that is inaccurate about the I think your description of Greg's weakness is inaccurate in that Greg Roman has the most deceptive and best, most efficient in history, his run game. Glenn, you said this before. I mean, he has the hardest run game to stop, and it's not just because of Lamar Jackson, because he's done it in every single place he's been. So I think you have to have serious creativity, even if it only is in the run game, because Greg can make every single run play, look the same and have totally different outcomes. Yeah. Right. And therefore, to me, that shows he has creativity. But I do understand the influence of these other coaches in the passing game. The only question, and I'll let you answer as well, Glenn, the only question I find myself trying to figure out is I don't believe Greg doesn't have the mental capacity to create a solid passing game, right? How much of it is is the team holding back because of personnel? Or do they not trust the wide receiver group? Do they not trust Lamar Jackson to do certain things? What is it? You see, is it Lamar saying, I'm going to tuck and run because the quarterback coach, what was his name? JT Sullivan said there's a couple plays where any quarterback is trained. We go through our reads and we dump it. And guys don't even turn around. Running backs don't even turn around with Lamar because they know he's taken off. They're not even going to get the ball, right? They're already in block mode. So there's so many other factors into that, but Greg's creativity, I don't think is on trial here. I think the passing game is. Yes.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that there was a lot that went into last year. The missing camp, and I think they did make a tactical error when they decided to try and work on the passing game throughout the season. That obviously didn't work. They thought they could, iron those things out with practice. And I think the COVID situation really hit that. I mean, guys were missing practice left and right, and really just could never get that passing game where they wanted to be. So I think that you'll feel the impact of those coaches in the construction of the offense, not necessarily by each play call. I mean, I think that Greg's still going to be making the play calls, but I think he'll have many more plays at his disposal by the time the season hits. I think he'll have a much more diverse playbook to call from, but I don't think that they'll be making any of the play calls on game day. I just think that they'll help with the construction and development of the offense all season, and really just help with the development of the players' talents. I think that's really where we'll see their impact being felt. So I'm still confident, but I think that there's really not going to be any excuses, right? For the play, as much as the organization has put into this passing attack, there is no excuses for Greg Roman this year.
Yeah, one of the things I like Charles Bowie's comments. He said that in Buffalo they were top 10 in big plays in the passing game. Even though they didn't have the yards other teams had, which is interesting. Yeah, and then he said we run none of it now, not sure why. So that's really kind of where my question is. How much of it is there lack of trust in the personnel, the wide receiver group, the quarterback? I love Lamar Jackson, but maybe Greg doesn't trust him to do certain things. Or like we talked about Richard Sherman, maybe he doesn't want to put him in situations where he's so great at this. Why make him do this? Right. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe Greg sees it that way. So there's a lot of factors at play as that more than just Greg isn't creative.
Right. Yeah. I don't think creativity is the issue. Yeah. I'm not. Yeah. You don't have the most creative run game in history and not be creative. Hey, shout out to Titan Upload. Appreciate you, jumping in the comments. Shout out. I mean, we appreciate you coming on with our show last year, and hopefully we can meet up again. Yeah, I saw the pinned tweet, Titan Upload, that you have on your Twitter page, with Cowherd talking about that you guys aren't going to win with the Julio Jones move.
and I like the fuel of the fire. Obviously, I have to hope that he's right in his prophecy, because if not, I wouldn't be a good Ravens fan. But I liked the pin tweet. If I'm a Titans fan, I like seeing it. So certainly, really going to be interesting to see how that acquisition plays out in Tennessee. But Glenn, we got to talk about. I mean, we did the video on Todd Gurley, but we got to give him something here, right?
Yeah, let's talk a little Todd. I mean, if you want to hear more in depth, we did a 15, 20-minute video all about it. But yeah, let's, I guess, refresh or recount our feelings on the Todd Gurley situation.
Yeah, have at it.
Okay, all right. So to me, you're talking about a guy who's rookie of the year in 2015, offensive player of the year in 2017, had the diagnosis of the arthritis, and since that in 18, we've seen a decline in his numbers. But with that being said, he's from Baltimore. If they can get him to come in and agree to a hometown discount, now he made he had a $5.5 million cap hit last year when he played for the Falcons, and the current valuation from Spot Track is that he will make another $5.5 million this upcoming season, and as well as the year after that. So I'm not thrilled with that number, but if he can take a hometown discount, being he's from Baltimore, and probably looks at the Ravens as the most intriguing spot for any running back, and certainly himself, to revitalize his career and maybe, hit another big payday in free agency next season. He's only going to be 27 after next year. I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, here's the thing. We're good right now with those two backs, with JK and Gus. What if one were to go down? High ankle sprain. He's gone for 6 to 8 weeks. Now you only have one guy. Now we feel good about that one guy, but this is an offense that runs the ball more than anyone in the league. So we like to have two guys. I mean, look what Gus has done as the number 2 at best, but a lot of times even the number 3 running back, and he's ran for 700 yards.
He's made a living out of it.
Exactly. So it's clear there's enough carries to go around, certainly for 2. And if Gus or JK were forced to miss, maybe they pull a groin and miss 2 months, it'd be nice to know you got Todd Gurley, because at his, we've seen him. Last year was the worst we saw Todd Gurley. He's better than Justice Hill at his worst that we've seen. Okay.
At his best.
No, even at Todd Gurley's worst, he's better than Justice Hill. I mean, at his worst, he had 9 touchdowns last year.
Right.
So at his worst, I mean, he's still better than Justice Hill is. And honestly, the fact that they have him in tells me they're probably not thrilled with what they see out of their running backs after Gus and after JK. So they're probably seeing the same thing that we're talking about, is that they're not confident if one of those 2 lead guys were to go down, that they could rely on Justice Hill for anything more than a change of pace guy and a contributor on special teams. So yeah, if they can get him in at a right price, why not add a guy like Todd Gurley, who, by the way, has had injury concerns but hasn't missed a lot of games. Played in 15 last year, 15 and 19. He played in 14 in 2018 and 15 and 16 the 2 years before that. So he's missed a lot of practice, has had some injuries, but has still been able to suit up ultimately on game day.
Yeah, sorry I had to black you out there. I didn't want to see you. I didn't want you guys to see me screaming at my dog as someone just knocked on the door. So I figured I'd spare you. But Nick Glover, really quickly, before I get to your question, I want to talk about Todd Gurley. Appreciate the super chat. Much love. But give me 1 second here, and then I'll get right to it. The one thing I want to say about Todd is I agree with you 100%. It was funny after we drafted JK last year. It was one of those picks where all of the pundits that are sitting, up on the table took a second and said, this is interesting, before they started to give their opinions on the player, because that was the last thing they were expecting the Ravens to do, right? And I think that was, ourselves included, it was not a move that we saw. But we saw how much it paid off.
Yep.
Right. And so, yeah, this could be a head scratcher, but if the price is right, it can make all the sense in the world. Because at a very best, you get a way better third back, but in a worst case scenario, he's a great insurance policy. And it could be an opportunity for him to say, you know what, I'll take less in Baltimore because I know that I can produce and get more later. Yep. Right. So he might see it as an investment, as far as an opportunity for him to make more later. So yeah, that's my opinion on Gurley, but like Glenn said, go check out the video. It's much more in depth, but Glenn, this is interesting because the question is, did Clay Matthews retire? I wanted him last offseason. And full disclosure, guys, for those of you that have been around from the beginning, Glenn, if you remember this, our first video that took off was the Clay Matthews video when we heard that he was connected to the Ravens. I mean, it feels like 8 years ago now, right?
Yeah.
But really, I haven't seen that he's retired. I mean, he didn't play anywhere last year. What's your take on the Clay Matthews thing?
Well, that's a guy that we talked about. Yeah, it seems like forever ago. And
I know.
I like the versatility he brings. Now, this is a guy who's got plenty of experience rushing the passer, has had a ton of years, double-digit sacks, and also he's played middle linebacker in other years where he's had success there as well. So I like the fact that he could come in and be a versatile player. However, I think the career is over for Clay Matthews. I know that he didn't play last year. He's yet to sign this year. And who knows what kind of shape he's in. I'm sure this is the type of guy who didn't just stop working out when he wasn't linked to a team. So I'm sure he's in decent shape, but football shape, I'd be surprised to see at this age him still being in that football shape. And I haven't heard any rumors. I haven't heard any rumblings. I haven't heard anybody mention the name Clay Matthews. So my only assumption is that while maybe he hasn't filled out the retirement paperwork, he's at all intents and purposes retired from the league. I mean, I think it's similar to what Terrell Suggs is right now. I mean, this is a guy who
just hasn't turned in the paperwork.
Yeah, we're all waiting for him to come back home and sit at the table and talk with Eric DeCosta on one side and Harbaugh on the other and talk about his time in Baltimore. I think the same can be said for Clay Matthews, and hopefully he has that press conference back in Green Bay where he started it all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with you there as well. It's just about a paper. Maybe the NFL will start sending him and Suggs for some random drug screening, like apparently they did to Steve Smith, and that's why he finally was like, I'm putting the paperwork in. I'm tired of going to these freaking drug tests. I'm
so
done.
Even free agents are subject to that. Wow.
That's what Steve said in his interview, and that's part of the reason why he ended up putting the paperwork in when he did, because he was like, I'm tired of this. I don't want to go take a drug test. Yeah,
it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, it's insane. So, I mean, it's funny. We just talked about two former Rams back to back. It's crazy how that team has overhauled itself, right?
Mm-hmm. And still competitive.
Yeah, it's insane. But there's a couple other things here, unless you saw something, Glenn. I mean, the Von Miller thing, I think, was hotter in the offseason. But I think they hold on to him this year, and they see what they can do. Maybe they get a Deshaun Watson. If he plays this year, who knows what's going to happen there. But, if one team goes big in on him, I could see it being the Broncos.
I mean, the Broncos are desperate. I can't believe that when they were picking at number 9 and they saw Justin Fields, they saw Mac Jones. I mean, they decide to ride with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. I think we both have seen enough of those guys to
He's
understand.
Just steady Teddy, right? Like, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, at best, he's a serviceable starter at best, but he's not a franchise quarterback. Neither are franchise quarterbacks, and neither, I don't think, unless you have. I mean, look, they're talking about they have a fantastic defense, which we're going to get into the fact that they were rated as the number 1 secondary in football over your Baltimore Ravens, who came in at number 2. We're going to get into that, I think, at another time. Yeah. But even if they do have this fantastic defense, I still think you need better quarterback play than what they're going to have in Denver. So the fact that they decided to pass on a guy like Justin Fields when he was there at 9, didn't have to go up to get him in the top 5, none of that. It was shocking. And I'm sure if if you gave him some true serum to some of the players on the team, especially on the offensive side, they were hopeful that they were going to bring in somebody else at the quarterback spot, especially the receivers, because, man, I don't count on them. But either way, if that defense is going to be good enough to carry them, they need to keep Von Miller. They need to lean on that secondary and keep that pass rush of Von Miller to improve that, to help the secondary. Right. Because they're definitely going to need to win with defense if they're going to rely on one of those two at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. That's certainly going to be interesting to see what happens at quarterback for them. But yeah, I don't see Vaughn going anywhere, and I don't think it's a viable option for the Ravens. But one thing I wanted to mention here, this is so we talked about this before. This is more of a laundry list thing, but for you guys that haven't seen it already, one of the things I want to mention is that we got the swag out. Nick Solano shouted us out on Facebook. That was really cool. Mm-hmm. We had a blast with that, and he made our week and month, I think. Just him repping it. I'm just going to drop it here in the chat if you guys want to check it out. But the other thing too is, with us having this new partnership with Newsbreak, it's just a new way for us to reach a new market and things like that. Talk to more people that maybe aren't up on YouTube, and I think it's done really well globally. Like we've picked up some steam for some people that are outside the States and things like that. But I'm just going to drop our unique link as well because we get some love from them as far as being a preferred partner. So if you guys want to download the link and follow us there, that'd be awesome as well. Oh geez whiz.
Jimmy
Come
Kidwell.
on, Jimmy. Come on, Jimmy.
Come on, man. I'm not even going to go there because I'm pretty sure I shouldn't even be laughing about this. And it's
right.
wrong. So I'm going to stop. Nick, appreciate it, man. Appreciate Nick Glover showing some love. Appreciate the support. Brixon, I want to talk about, and I'm just throwing this out there, not putting anyone on the spot because it can be tough to come up with a nickname. But if the chat has some creative nicknames, he says,
boy.
what should the Ravens' secondary nickname be? He said the Broncos had the no-fly zone. The Seahawks had the Legion of Boom. What are some good ideas to nickname this fantastic secondary? I see Don C., who's always showing us love in the chat, says the Purple Punch. And I like it. It's got a little ring to it. But yeah, let us know if you guys come up with a creative and cool nickname for this.
And it makes sense, I guess, because Juice Man is Marcus Peters. He's the Juice Man, and then of course Fruit Punch is Marlon Humphrey. So Purple Punch. Yeah. I could definitely see it. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Legion of poor pass covers. He's tripping. You're tripping. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but clearly lost your mind there to talk about poor pass coverage here in Baltimore. I'm not sure where that came from, but yeah, no, not here in Baltimore. We got some corners in Baltimore. So
no, for sure.
Let us know what you guys, if you come up with anything creative, and we'll definitely pass it on and try and get it started.
One thing, Glenn, for sure is I think it's time. We got a few minutes left here. I think it's time for the moments of wisdom, the words of wisdom from the one, the only, Daniel, the legend, DK. Come on in, man.
Yeah, let's see what you got for us today, DK.
What's going on, guys?
What's up?
Not much.
So you've been sitting back there soaking it all in.
Yeah, that's true. Let's
get some digested thoughts from you. What's your take for the day, my man?
All right. Well, I wanted to go back to something that you guys already did a video on, but I think it's worth mentioning again. Is actually it's kind of interesting that we were talking about Todd Gurley, because I think Gus Edwards really deserves some love. It's probably the biggest news this week, and for the Ravens, and I'm going to do an article about this, but
nice.
What the research that I did this week was about his contract and how it compares to other running backs, specifically second running backs, RB2s, and how his contract kind of compares, or it's really actually establishing a market for that second running back. So what's kind of interesting is when you look across the league, most guys are, I would say in the past, I don't know, recent history, I won't put a number on it, but recent, number of years, the NFL's like really shifted from this feature back offenses to multiple backs, right? Running back by committee. And it used to be kind of like taboo, or, people would talk about it and be like, it's not a great system. That means they don't have someone good enough, right? Mm-hmm. But nowadays it's an asset to have multiple guys that you can lean on. And that whole dynamic of the running backs not getting their second contracts, partly because the feature back guys, they get run into the ground. If you think about guys like Derrick Henry, they're an anomaly. You don't have guys like that who get that kind of workload throughout the season, and you expect them to do that year after year after year. A lot of guys, Todd Gurley is the best example. Right, some guy who is a feature back and gets run into the ground. Injury starts taking a toll, and then becomes an issue in terms of the injuries pile up and their production starts to drop. And so, I would say he's a victim of that. And so I think the Ravens have an interesting system where they've committed to that running back by committee system, and they have no shame in it. They're going to do it, and they're going to tear you up with it. And they're showing the rest of the league that this can work as a system, right? Not by accident. And so what that does is, then Gus Edwards' contract then becomes a standard. What do you pay a guy if you determine that this is the system you want to run? What do you pay a guy who's your second guy? Well, what's interesting here is J.K. Dobbins is really the first guy, right? But he's still on his rookie contract, so he doesn't have that he doesn't have that second contract yet. But Gus Edwards coming up, he kind of set he's establishing the market. I say that because when I looked around, it's really only one guy, and that's Kareem Hunt, that has that kind of a contract. The only other one is Kenyon Drake. He got paid as a second contract behind Jacobs.
Yep.
But it's kind of an anomaly. I mean, I don't know what the Vegas Raiders are doing. I'm not sure why they paid him so much. And I mean, I can only assume that the reason why they're paying him is because they plan on having him run just like, in addition to in a heavy workload setting, in addition to Josh Jacobs. So, but if they commit to it, then that's great. That's also another contract that would be sort of a comp. But I think Gus Edwards' contract extension really kind of establishes a market that this is a real position, that when you're setting up your offense and you're thinking run first, or at the very least, you're serious about your run game, that his contract is something that you got to compare to when you're thinking about that second running back.
That's interesting because not back in the day, but more when you hear about a number two guy, you think how much you paying your backup quarterback because he's the second most important player on your team, right?
Yeah.
But like you said, it's not only an asset to have a running back that's a two-headed monster, but it's kind of turning into a necessity. Right. With the way the league is going. So it's that's a really interesting point. And like DK said, I'm excited to read the article. Man, I've been loving it. I know a lot of other folks have been loving it as well. I'm gonna drop that the link for our Patreon as well in the chat. Make sure you guys check it out. As somebody else said, when is the DK shirt coming? DK, we're gonna have to.
Yeah, we got to get a DK shirt.
That's right. We're gonna have to get a shirt out there that reps DK for sure. But the other thing too is DJ brought something up here. Who has more cap for Justin Houston? Who would need him? We kind of mentioned this. I think there's teams with more cap, but I think the competitor to us would be the Colts, right? I can't think of anyone else off the top of my mind that would make more sense for him. And from a fit perspective, as far as he knows them, they know him. And the familiarity with them, but I don't know. Do you guys have any other teams you're thinking of?
Yeah, let me just they have very similar space. It looks like they have 14.7 in cap space. So yeah, I think Indy's the biggest competitor right now. They did draft Kwity Paye, but
right.
The same can be said for the Ravens drafting Odafe Owe. That just because you bring in one guy does not mean you're still not needy for a veteran at that spot, and who at very least provides depth. But I think Houston brings more than just depth. I think he brings a starter potential. And so, yeah, I think that's the biggest competition right there, right now for the Ravens, as far as, because he doesn't, like you said, he doesn't want to go to a non-contender. He doesn't want to go spend years with a rebuild. He wants to go for a team that is competing to win a championship. And I think Indy is certainly a team that can say they were. I mean, they had a fantastic year last year and seemingly upgraded their roster if everyone plays to their potential. And really, you're pointing to Carson Wentz when you're talking about that, because he's the biggest what if. Does he go back to old form, or does he continue to look like a quarterback who's lost it mentally and has been beaten down by expectations, by injuries, by a lot of different things? So, but I would say the Colts are definitely the biggest competition. And I don't think salary cap, at least right now, is going to be to stop either one of these teams from bringing a guy like Justin in.
Yeah, no, for sure. The other, you gave a shout out to Don C. He might be comment of the night. This cracked me up, DK. Said 46 likes with 120 viewers. DK researched the numbers and determined that sucks. Smash the like button.
I like it.
That was awesome, man. That one cracked me up. I was like, nice. That was good, Don. That was really awesome. But it's been a blast tonight. I'm excited to see the article. Like I said before, go check out the shirt, go the swag, and we'll have some hats and some new stuff out. Check us out on Newsbreak as well. Download the app using the link here in the chat. Hit us up on Twitter anytime you guys have any questions, any show ideas, anything like that. And obviously that's one of the opportunities as a patron, you get voting rights into what we talk about. But the other thing, Glenn, I wanted to say, you brought it up, is that, we have a playlist up of the videos we've done based on the PFF rankings.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to build that out completely. Every single ranking that they come up with, we're going to continue to keep pumping out those videos. We'll get to the coaching staff. We'll get to the defensive backs like you referenced. And every single one that they come up with, we will either trash or applaud them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's real. There's no in between there. Yeah. No doubt. But yes, please check out DK as a writer. He belongs to be writing for much bigger places than 410 Sports Talk. So we are blessed and thankful to have him. So check it out if you're, interested in seeing some more Ravens stuff. But I want to give a couple shout outs. Living legend, always in here with us and active in the comments. We appreciate you. Anonymous YouTuber. He says, one more question. What do you think about the Ravens' vacant position left by Judon? Hopefully, Odafe Owe fills that spot, and then a combination of a bunch of other guys fill in the opening. Bowser with, having Bowser, do a lot of the coverage stuff that Judon was doing, and then obviously McPhee's going to fill in and do what he can at this point in his career. But yeah, it's going to have to be a combination of a bunch of guys. Troy, appreciate you always coming out here and making a lot of sense in the comments. Don C, repping the 410 and pumping up the like button. Appreciate you. Fabian Barcenas, appreciate the shout out. McDiamond always coming in here. He's asking for the secret recipe for a Krabby Patty. We're going to have to save that, because you can see your boy loves some Old Bay. I mean,
Glenn, you might have to get a McBanger and put some Old Bay on it. Now we're talking, baby.
Goodness. Oh, my goodness. Adding more minutes to the toilet session. Nana Rave, as always, appreciate you coming out. Big Cuz, what's going on? Katie, I love you. Thank you for being in the comments.
Absolutely.
Katie wants a DK hat, or either that or she likes your hat. One of the two. Jimmy Kidwell. Appreciate you coming out.
Shout out to Katie. She's the only reason we have this show today.
That's true.
Right?
That's true. I would have never known Jimmy the Rascal Haskell if I wouldn't have met my wife all them years back.
You decided to start chasing around Katie, we would have never met, man.
That's right.
Thanks, Katie. All you guys have Katie to thank.
That's right. Shout out to her, no doubt. Let's see if there's someone else I'm missing. I do apologize. Anyone else who just watched and didn't comment, we appreciate you as well. Lisa Frankel or Lisa Ann. I think it's Lisa Ann, but correct me if I'm wrong there. Adam78, thank you guys. We appreciate it, and we'll be back soon.
We out.